The city roared with engines and sirens, but inside a dim little garage on the corner of 7th Street, all you could hear was the steady clink of tools and the hum of an old radio. The mechanic, a man with oil-stained hands and quiet eyes, worked long hours fixing other people's problems, though he could barely afford to fix his own life. He never imagined that one rainy afternoon would bring a black luxury car to his small garage. A car that didn't belong here, not in this part of town. Two men in dark suits stepped out first, scanning the surroundings like shadows. Then, from the back seat, a young woman appeared, fragile, elegant, and sitting in a wheelchair. Her father followed, an older man with sharp eyes and the kind of presence that silenced a room. The mechanic instantly recognized him. Everyone did. He was a man people feared. The one whose name was whispered, never spoken aloud. A man who could destroy lives with a phone call. The older man gestured to the car. "Fix it, now." The mechanic nodded silently and got to work. He didn't ask questions. He didn't look at anyone. But while he worked, he noticed the girl in the wheelchair. She wasn't like her father. Her eyes were soft, curious, lonely. As he replaced a broken valve, he heard her soft voice for the first time. "You fix cars all day." He looked up, surprised that she'd spoken to him. "Yes, ma'am, every day." She smiled faintly. "Must be nice. You make things move again." The words hit him deeper than he expected. He glanced at her legs, covered with a light blanket, and realized she hadn't moved them once. When her father stepped away to take a call, the mechanic wiped his hands and approached her. "I used to fix bikes for the neighborhood kids. If you ever want, I could teach you something about engines. Just for fun." She laughed softly. "I can't even walk." He replied gently, "Then maybe you can learn how things work first. Walking can come later." Something in his tone, simple, honest, without petty, made her pause. Nobody ever talked to her that way. The next few days, the car repairs took longer than necessary. Not because he didn't know what he was doing, but because she kept coming back to the garage, asking questions. "How do pistons work? Why do engines overheat?" He'd explain patiently, showing her small parts, guiding her hands to feel the weight of steel in motion. Every time she visited, she seemed lighter, happier. She began using her arms more, helping him hand over tools. Then one morning she surprised him. She stood, just for a second. Her father, standing at a distance, froze. Weeks turned into months. The girl returned often, under the pretense of checking her father's cars. The mechanic, with a quiet determination, built a small device in his garage. A lightweight frame with support rods and small gears, custom, built from scrap metal. "This isn't much," he said, showing it to her one evening, "but it might help you take your first real steps." She looked at it, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Why are you doing this?" He smiled faintly. "Because someone once told me, everything broken can be fixed. You just need patience and care." She tried it. The device wobbled, squeaked, but held her steady. She walked 3 steps, then 5. By the time her father arrived, she was standing on her own. For the first time, the powerful man's mask cracked. He looked from his daughter to the mechanic, unable to speak. Years of wealth and control hadn't given him what this poor man's kindness had. He asked the mechanic how much he wanted for the help. Money, cars, a business, anything. The mechanic simply shook his head. "She already paid me," with her smile. Later that night, as the black car drove away, the garage lights flickered. The mechanic stood quietly, watching the taillights fade into the rain. He didn't know that his act of kindness had just begun to change not 1, but 3 lives forever. Hers, her father's, and his own. Because somewhere in that small moment, between steel and heart, something beautiful had started to move again. The next morning, the mechanic opened his garage as usual. The rain had stopped, but the air still smelled like change. He swept the floor, poured himself a cup of black coffee, and got back to work. By afternoon, a convoy of black cars stopped outside again. His heart skipped. He thought maybe something had gone wrong. But this time when the doors opened, there were no bodyguards, no tension. Only the same young woman, standing, on her own, leaning lightly on a cane, her face glowing with life. Behind her stood her father, the feared man who once made others tremble. But now his eyes were different. Softer, almost human. The mechanic froze, wiping his hands nervously. "You're walking," she smiled, tears forming. "Because of you." Her father stepped forward, voice heavy but sincere. "You gave my daughter what money never could. You showed me what real strength looks like." He handed the mechanic a small envelope. Inside wasn't cash, but a document. The man had bought the garage for him, legally registered in his name. "From now on," the man said, "this is your place, no rent, no fear. You've earned it." The mechanic stared in disbelief. "Sir, I never wanted." "I know," the man interrupted gently. "That's why you deserve it." Silence filled the air, thick with emotion. Then the young woman took a small step toward him, holding out the metal brace he had built months ago. "I don't need this anymore," she said softly, "but I want you to keep it, as a reminder that what you build with love never breaks." He accepted it with trembling hands. As they left, the mechanic watched her walk away. Strong, steady, free. For the first time in years, he felt tears roll down his face. Not of sadness, but of gratitude. He placed the brace on a shelf above his workbench. It stayed there, covered in dust and sunlight, a quiet reminder that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can rebuild entire lives, one step at a time. From that day on, people said the little garage on 7th Street wasn't just where engines came back to life. It was where hearts did too.